If you want a legacy to survive, like 1,000 years, the usual answer is to build a pyramid.
Right.
You just pour enough concrete or stack enough stone, and, well, history can't ignore you. But what happens when your legacy is just an idea?
Yeah, that's the ultimate test of endurance. I mean,
Yeah.
a concept doesn't have a physical shell to protect it from, fading into obscurity.
Right, exactly. And we're looking at exactly how an idea builds that shell today. Welcome to today's deep dive, where we are exploring a brief but really specific excerpt from a document called The Market for Liberty.
Which basically outlines the foundation and the infrastructure of the Austrian School of Economics.
Right. And before we get too far in, I do need to state right up front that because this source deals with some heavily charged political and ideological theories, we are strictly maintaining neutrality here.
Right, absolutely.
We're impartially unpacking the text provided to us. We're not, endorsing the Austrian school or taking any political sides. We just want to see how this works.
We're here purely as observers, just putting this text under the microscope to see how their intellectual infrastructure actually functions in the real world.
Exactly. So setting up that infrastructure, the text roots the movement into specific historical figures, right?
Yes, primarily Ludwig von Mises, who lived from 1881 to 1973, and Murray N. Rothbard. And Rothbard's dates in our text end in 1995.
Okay, so if we think about these two men as like foundational architects, Mises and Rothbard basically drew up the original intellectual blueprints. They laid down the underlying philosophical logic for these theories, and modern followers are essentially the construction crews trying to build from those plans.
That's a really good way to look at it. But unlike a physical building where the blueprint is final, these intellectual blueprints are, well, they're constantly being debated and reinterpreted by that crew. It's an active living infrastructure.
Right.
Mises and Rothbard provided the logic, sure, but for those ideas to actually survive the 20th century, they needed a physical anchor.
Right. A place to actually live, which the text reveals is actively sustained today by the Mises Institute. But wait, this is where I'm a bit tripped up.
Yeah.
You have an Austrian Economics Institute, but it operates out of the American South, specifically Auburn, Alabama. I mean, the address is literally 518 West Magnolia Avenue. You can reach them at 334-321-2100.
It is a pretty fascinating geographic irony, I'll give you that.
How does a niche academic center in the heart of American college football territory plan to shift the global intellectual climate?
Well, that geographic juxtaposition is actually a crucial part of the strategy. By anchoring themselves in the South, far away from the traditional Ivy League establishment, they are able to foster a distinct, almost countercultural intellectual movement.
Oh, so they aren't even trying to blend into mainstream academia.
Not at all. They are explicitly working toward what the text calls a free and prosperous commonwealth, but on their own terms.
Okay, but how exactly do they do that? The excerpt says their primary engine for this shift is a massive publishing program, offering high-quality editions of new and classic works, plus all these resources available at Mises.org.
Right.
But I mean, is a publishing program really enough to change an entire intellectual climate, especially today?
It is if you understand the mechanism behind it. By creating a highly accessible, rigorously produced canon of these texts, they ensure that any curious economics student who wants to bypass traditional curriculums instantly has a complete alternative library ready to read.
Oh, wow. So they aren't just selling books.
Exactly. They are institutionalizing an entire school of thought so it doesn't require mainstream academic approval to survive.
They're building a parallel academic universe.
Pretty much, yeah.
It means you can't just hope people stumble across Mises and Rothbard by accident. Abstract economic ideas require physical infrastructure. It takes a dedicated institute and, like you said, an aggressive publishing arm to maintain relevance and actively push for that intellectual shift.
Exactly. A theory just won't outlast a generation on its own. It requires constant, organized effort to keep the intellectual machinery running.
You might not need stone and steel, but you definitely need a printing press. So I want to leave you with this to ponder on your own. If consistently publishing and distributing high-quality texts is the primary engine for shifting an entire intellectual climate, how much of what we consider mainstream thought today started simply because a small, dedicated group organized a printing press?